One, business acumen, and they were comparing with the global CEO group. And relatively speaking, they said number one is business acumen. Indian CEOs seem to be, far ahead of so many other CEOs from across the world. Number two, very, very strong nationalist orientation. The desire to make a success, the desire to put India on the map seems to be a great motivator for Indian CEOs. Third is they derive tremendous strength from inner spiritual forces and inner spiritual energies. And the last one is their people competencies and emotional intelligence. So straight away we are diving into the issue, and I'm connecting it with what has been discussed in the morning, that is it the role just of HR, or do we also need the CEO signaling and support for any new developments, innovations, etc. to take place in HR? That's the first question, and this I consider to be a CEO blind spot. Second blind spot, identifying talent is not just something you can hand over to a department. I believe that senior level people should be able to spot talent. They should also be part of a group which identifies talent. So this is the second one. Third one is what I call the L1 trap. You're all familiar with L1. And just to share an example to give a punch to this concept, there is this organization which I would not like to name, which I think in my previous organization, when we were looking for some training opportunities, and we quoted something, somebody else quoted something. Okay, that happens. But to our horror, the final organization which was selected was not even a third-rate institution, it was a fourth-rate institution, purely on the basis of L1 considerations. I think this is not only a blind spot, this is also a chasm into which companies fall. Because the moot point, you should ask a question. When you go to a doctor, do you go to the best doctor, or you go to the one which charges the least? So if we value our talent, we should be taking that approach, that go to the best, or at least create some kind of a bench or a bar below which you will not go, so that at least you go to people of a certain level. So this is another blind spot. And lastly, I want to say, in this section on blind spots, in the army, it's considered to be a great honor to be selected for training, to be sent to Wellington College. So the best are sent there. And when it comes to public sector, at least I will not generalize about all organizations, but I've seen there is a PPP, perpetual program participant. And there seem to be some people who are eminently dispensable. They can be given leave to go for programs. Good people, performing people don't get that chance. So sorry, I don't mean to be very rude, but I think unless we acknowledge our blind spots, we are not going to be able to move beyond them by handling them. So coming back to the contextual factors, and based on the contextual analysis, I would like to identify and bring to your notice the first competency which would be needed is that people across the board, top to bottom, bottom to top, whichever way you want to look at it, should be more entrepreneurial. I would give entrepreneurial as a broad competency, which includes taking initiative, being innovative, spotting opportunity, taking risks. This is one. Second one is, you don't need only tech savvy people, you need tech masters who have a mastery and a capacity to use it as per the organizational requirement. Third is global orientation, regardless of whether we go and work anywhere in the world, although that is increasingly common, but having a global perspective and orientation is critical. Next one is competency as an enabler. This is a big one and a big challenge for all of us. And lastly, of course, capacity at lifelong learning that goes without saying. Now, if you look at all these, what emerges is some of them fit Gen Y and some of them are perfect for Gen X. So if you look at tech, you have Gen Y. If you look at entrepreneurial, it should be Gen Y. Again, broad brush, okay? It's global, maybe Gen Y, Gen X. If you look enablers, purely Gen X. And question is now how to develop such mindsets. Global mindsets you cannot develop by sitting in your cubicle in the office, obviously. And going abroad is a very, very important part of it. And from India, people have been going in various whether programs or whether sent by their organizations. I think seeing is believing. And there's one example of a person who was a director of finance of an organization I would not like to name, who was perpetually against sending people abroad for training, any program with a training component, citing it is expensive, right? But when he went and he saw for himself and he came back as a convert. So many times it happens that seeing is believing and learning happens just by being immersed into another culture. Next one, when we look at enablers, I want to give you a beautiful example here from Kumar Mangalam Birla. Again, a book which we had written, Dr. Singh and I, into 2012 it came out, In Search of Change Maestros. If any of you has seen the book, the case on Birla narrates a story, and this is around 360-degree feedback, okay? And role modeling by Mr. Birla on 360-degree feedback. I think they initially went for it, and his immediate group, they were just sitting down, they had their books in their hand, they're looking at their scores, and they're saying, no one actually knows how, to react to it because each one has some black mark on their feedback. After a bit of a silence, this is what Santrup Mishra shared, that Mr. Birla himself took the lead and said, oh, looks like I have two, low areas and two moderate areas on which I will have to work. And subsequently I was told that set the tone for making 360-degree a natural part of the feedback process in the organization. So again, although we may like to say that HR should be doing all this, but CEO has a very important role to play and the top team has a very important role to play. Or take something like lifelong learning. AIM Naik, this was shared by Mr. R.P. Singh, I think. He used to head communications in L&T. He shared us a story which was so amazing. He says, at the end of every meeting, in those days he had set an agenda for himself that I should be, high or very high, because I think he had been rated that he's not that good in group meetings, he talks too much, blah, blah, blah. So apparently after a meeting he overheard him say, today I give myself, I think I'll give myself B+. I've not yet reached A. Imagine the CMD of an organization saying this, and imagine what kind of an impact it can have on others simply in terms of role modeling behavior. Next, let's go to technology and millennials, because the big emerging force after technology is millennials. Competitiveness, technology, millennials. And our book from 2013, I think, brought out that millennials want quick feedback, want recognition, want to be made to feel important, and want to be groomed and developed by their mentors, okay? And they don't want to be criticized. They're a little delicate, some of you here. And they like to be told nicely, and they will improve, okay? So this need for importance is so high among them, for whatever reason. Companies which have handled this positively, I want to give you two examples. One is the case of Zensar. Zensar Technology is based out of Pune. They did something very beautiful. They brought to the table a concept of Vox Populi, voice of the people. So they had a series of group meetings which were mentored by the senior management group. for people who have just joined the organization, get them together in a group, brainstorm on issues, bring that voice, on and on, filter onto the top. So in the process, everybody is feeling involved and feeling very, very happy that their voice has reached the decision-making table. So I can't go into further details because there's no time. Another one is what is called murmuration at Infosys. So these are the two things which come. Just to give an example how millennial talent can be positively used and their needs are met. And in fact, in terms of managing millennials, I think the concept should no more be about superior and subordinate. The concept should be partners, because millennials have a lot to give. And it's not that they're only taking from their bosses. It's not that they're only, getting knowledge transfer. They have a lot to give the organization, provided we know how to use it.
Madam, just if you could be slightly brief.
30 more seconds. Or maybe 30. Okay. So reason here is that by 2020, 64% of the workforce in India is going to be the millennial population. So moment they are in majority, I think Gen X will have to really seriously rethink, and they can't afford to say I'm the boss and sit there. Okay, because another reason, they are important for your success. Now, of course, we've talked about the obvious thing, HR should align with the business to identify key competencies. I have mentioned some competencies from my point of view. What is important is to do the full talent development cycle. You don't stop at competency mapping. You go on to assessment. You don't stop at assessment. You go on to 360-degree feedback. You don't stop at 360-degree feedback. You go for coaching and mentoring. And then you link it with promotions and growth. Performance, promotions, growth. So unless we do this cycle, I think we are not going to get the results. Because I've seen in public sector, it's done, in isolation. And that's one of my pain points. I work very hard, do a competency assessment, and then end up finding that nothing has been implemented, no feedback has been given, and so on. And due respect to him, I will just try to conclude by saying talent development has to become a mission. There are ways to do it, and we need a top management which is supportive, and then we can achieve the morning's invocation of Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya in this context, that is, let us be more enlightened about our talent and about people power. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I would now request Mr. Jayant Kumar from Tata Power to briefly touch upon and give his perspective.
Because it has to be brief, so I hope you are okay if I speak from here.
Yeah,
that will be better. Okay, so I think taking it forward from the session before lunch, the CEOs mostly were speaking about their expectation from HR and also general sector scenario. One conclusion that I could draw is that going forward, even today, talent is the heart of the growth strategy for most of the progressive organizations. Today, it will be very, very difficult to assume that talent is not the core part of the overall strategy that any organization is drawing. If it is so important, then it may not be a very good idea to leave this by whatever name, whether it is nurturing and transforming, talent development, talent management, whatever name we give, only in the hands of HR managers or HR people. I think it's too important an agenda where CEO and the entire leadership team participates in different roles, different forms. Obviously, HR has a role of the designer and the architect, but then beyond that, the whole agenda has to be taken forward by the leadership team. That is first thing that I feel. And hence, unless until we make it little broad-based in participation, it will remain only a kind of poster boy initiative. These are very good, very fascinating concepts, nurturing, we are drawing from other sciences. But to make it meaningful, somewhere, somehow, HR function has to make it broad-based. That is the first point that I am making. Second thing is that, specifically talking in terms of energy and infrastructure sector, you see, the mindset of the workforce is predicated by the business model that exists. Energy infrastructure traditionally has been very, very stable sector. You put a lot of capex into it, you put a lot of money, you enter into a 25-year PPA or purchase agreement, And after that, as long as your input-output ratio is working well and efficiency parameters are there, you don't need to worry. That has been the business model so far. But no more so. The waves of change are blowing very strong, as all of us are experiencing across the value chain, whether it is generation, transmission or distribution. Today, generation is saying very disruptive kind of things. For example, open access business is gaining grounds. Similarly, in distribution, now opening of wire and carrier, those kind of things are likely to happen very soon. So the business model was stable, hence the workforce was also stable, hence the career span was also very, very long. One of the fundamental change that we are likely to experience very soon is that it will no more be a stable sector, it will be a turbulent sector, as much as what we have seen in telecom, what we have seen in IT, what we have seen in insurance, what we have seen in any other sector. And hence, one of the preparations that we need to do, or one of the realignments of systems and other things that we need to do is, how do we make things happen when things are changing at a different acceleration range? That means it was very easy that you hire a GET and you have a career path and you promote people and take them to different positions, and the stable organization structure caters to the needs. That is not likely to be there, and maybe in an organization like NTPC and Power Grid and these kind of places where still, because of the size and scale and state protection, things are still happening, but coming from power sector kind of thing, we are experiencing it very, very strongly. One of the imperatives for us is how do we prepare our workforce not only to adapt to the change or to embrace change, rather to be at the cutting edge of the change or to lead the change. And that's a massive shift that we are experiencing in terms of culture, because people come from power sector, energy sector, they are stable-oriented, stable-minded people. Whereas the environment is not allowing us to remain stable. Actually, it is changing at extremely rapid pace. So this 30-year, 35-year kind of a career model where you nurture people from GEG to end, it is not going to be continued for long. Our career spans at least in private sector has come down significantly. And hence one of the challenges is how do we really convert it into changing the wheels while the train is running at 200 km speed. That is the kind of internal HR systems realignment is required. When we do not have the time to stop the train and change the wheel and again start the train, that luxury is gone. Third and last thing that at this stage I want to say is the close linkage of performance and rewards. And this pay scale kind of pay scale linked rewards or Excel sheet based equality and very fairness kind of thing, that is not serving the needs of the organization, today's organization, or today's workforce that we are getting, Gen Y, etc. They are in a hurry. They are in a hurry, and unless until we fundamentally change the performance and reward model to a contribution linked kind of system, I at this stage have no clear-cut answer, but the problem is very profound. That is coming up continuously. We have to do some kind of innovation. We have to do some kind of invention in performance reward space, so that it has to be contribution linked and not in a traditional or classical way, the way we have been doing that. You take people and by and large they will be, because the value creators are very rare to find. And once you find a value creator, how do you value them and how do you grow them, how do you nurture them so that they create disproportionate kind of a value for the organization? That is the real challenge. And others are value multipliers. So treatment for value multipliers versus value creators has to be different, and that calls for a very, very differentiated kind of a treatment to people. There are other points also, because I would like to end at this stage, and next round again.
Thanks, Jayant. I think giving us a very holistic overview of what kind of sweeping changes, and particularly being in private sector, the first port of call is that you are going to take. So from now on, I would now move on to Mr. Avinash Chandra Joshi, who comes with the state sector. And as in the morning we had seen that there is a huge, huge potential which is untapped and locked, and we need to unleash that. So I would request Mr. Avinash Chandra Joshi, Director HR of Uttarakhand Jal Vidyut Nigam to share his perspective.
Thank you, sir. Distinguished speakers on the dais and off the dais, very, very good afternoon to you all. The tone of this program has been set up, and since morning, I have feeling lot of turbulence of thoughts. It has been made us to think that the way things are going on in the power sector is not going to remain so tomorrow. A lot of food for thought has been given to us, and I feel that the role of HR today, what we are doing, is definitely asking for more tomorrow. We have to really rethink about the role of HR. Shahi sir has clearly said that HR has to work out its own agenda. I am from a state sector where people do not know what HR is. They are still in the